How's it going? My name's Nico, I go by COINTrick and COINTricktwitch online. If you want to see more videos like this one, please remember to like and subscribe. Hit that bell so you get notified every time I upload another one of these videos. A lot of you watching are probably wondering exactly what this is. This is a jar where I normally keep my limes. I have another one like this where I keep my lemons, and what is at the bottom of this is a silica gel packet and some milled rice. Now, this was something that we learned unintentionally here at the bar. This is actually a really good way to cut some waste and potentially an easy, energy efficient way to make some dehydrated garnishes, because this is what happens when you leave your produce in here. And this was open, like to the open air. When you leave your produce in this, you're left with something like that. Now, unless you get very, very close up and hold it in your hand, it's probably kind of difficult to tell exactly why this is so important. So, this lemon has had most of its water content stripped away. So it's just the essential oils on the outside. There's still some water content locked on the inside, but these are about to go bad either way. So we're gonna try and explore an energy efficient and time efficient way to dehydrate some of your garnishes and potentially cut some of your waste either at your bar or restaurant, but also at home. So these are the limes that I would normally use to make a cocktail, and they're still fine. The rice is a natural desiccant, and so is the silica gel pack that is in there, which basically means that it helps to remove and eliminate any kind of like what I would call wild water content, which is just, it's water content that you can't control or won't control. So that prevents mold, it prevents spoilage to a certain extent, but it does dry up your produce. So if I cut into this, there will be lemon juice in here, and it will be perfectly safe for me to use in a cocktail. But you know, if I don't come back to the bar, since this is my home bar, if I don't come down here and use these lemons in like the next week, that juice inside of here will still go bad just of its own free will. So we're gonna use this dehydrating method that we kind of have accidentally stumbled upon and show you how you can use that to make a you know, family-friendly dehydrated garnish, hopefully. Barkeep Kyle Mooney. The guy from SNL? I could see that.
You didn't even tell us about this. Dude, we should have a formal dinner party. Invite people over, dress nice.
I could see it. I'm gonna go ahead and cut into these, show you guys just how juicy these lemons still are. Start from the end, where we can cut it pretty safely. That's what the inside looks like. Still very fresh. If anything, it may have concentrated the flavors from leaving it in a desiccant for so long. So we're just gonna be making nice little wheels out of these. If you have a small piece like this, you can kind of lay it flat, pinch the top tightly, and then cut sort of horizontally. If you're not comfortable doing that, then just don't. Another cheat code I used to use to prep my garnishes really quickly while I was bartending is I would cut one end of it, not halfway, I would cut one end, and then I would pinch that end against the rest of it so that I could continue cutting. And then when I took my hand away, it would basically fall into a set of wheels. So we'll see if I can do the same thing here. So basically, after you cut, maybe I would leave about a quarter of your lemon there at the end. So after you cut through there, then it's just a matter of cutting the rest of these. But you don't move your fingers. And that way, when you're ready, all of the wheels just neatly slide apart like that. So these are lemons that I would normally use to make cocktails, and as I've just shown you guys, and you can actually see here, if I turn the cutting board up, there's still plenty of juice inside the lemons themselves, but again, if I don't use these, they will go bad even if I'm leaving them in there with a desiccant and a silica gel packet and all that stuff. So, moving on to the kind of produce that you might have in your kitchen laying around that you can turn into maybe a garnish, maybe use the dehydrated garnish in a shrub that you use for something else later on. So what kinds of things might you have laying around your kitchen? Well, apples. Really quickly, these have not been sitting in a desiccant. They just happen to be shriveled, so we're gonna cut into these. If they're bad, dehydrating them isn't gonna save them, so we need to cut into these and see kind of what we're working with. I also need to figure out how exactly I'm going to cut the apple. Oh, never mind, that looks fine. So that is what a peel looks like. So there's a very important thing about this too with apples. This will illustrate this really well. and it's why I cut the lemons into wheels. It's much easier to dehydrate these when you have some form of unbroken skin holding the meat of the fruit together. So that's why I can't just cut the apple into like quarters, and I can't just cut the lemon into quarters. You can try, and sometimes those will dehydrate just fine, but what happens if you don't have that unbroken skin all the way around to retain that shape is it'll just, and it'll kind of look like a Frito-Lay chip, which is probably not everyone's cup of tea. Now, some other things that you can do if you're worried about like your produce and maybe your groceries and stuff at home or at work, if you're worried that you're wasting a lot of them, having to throw a lot of them away because you're not using them fast enough and they're going bad, other things you can do is you can turn them into preservatives, you can turn them into jam, you can turn them into shrubs and cordials, and maybe even liqueurs of your own. So if you have, we also have here some bananas that are maybe perfectly ripe, but this one's probably dodgy. So you can take those that are probably about to go bad and use those for an infusion. I can take some of the white rum that I have and potentially make a banana infused rum. So that's what I'm gonna do with those. The banana doesn't have that really, it's a segmented fruit, I believe. So it doesn't have the easily unbroken skin around the side of it. I could try and cut it like this, but then you would have to still remove the skin after it's been dehydrated to eat it. And these are meant to be eaten as the garnish. They're meant to be edible garnishes. A shrub or cordial is basically just where you take these and instead of steeping them in liquor specifically or alcohol of any kind, you steep them in some other kind of solution to extract those flavors. So you could put these in simple syrup, you can put them in club soda, you could put them in a number of different things. I think simple syrup is the most common one. You might not also use liquids. You can take, this will work really well with your softer fruits, or like the soft meat fruits, like the apple and not necessarily the lemon. You see what I mean by that? The apple doesn't have those segments on the inside and the lemon does. If you have a fruit like this or your bananas or something, you can take all of that meat, put it in a container, cover it in sugar, and that sugar will kind of macerate with those flavors, and it'll leave you have to leave it for a very long time, but it should leave you with a cordial liquid that you can use and serve at home. All right, so that's all of the apple that we got. Make sure I'm looking through these and kind of doing some secondary quality control. Make sure we don't have any of these that are bruised or broken getting into this final batch. Or these will do the same thing as those. The lemon wedges, if you try and dehydrate them, they will pinch like that, and then it'll just become this shriveled curly mess. Like me. Anyway, we have an orange that I stole from the kitchen that is, this is probably the dodgiest piece of fruit that we're gonna work with today. It looks like it was run over by a car, but we're gonna cut into it and we're gonna see if it's still serviceable. Anything that you would use to dry your phone, as long as it's not poisonous, should work just fine. Oh, this orange actually smells amazing. And this is what it looks like on the inside. Still very, very juicy. We're not gonna use this. I have a sanitized container right here. And before we do that, because you can almost kind of tell, the rice here has lost its, we'll say it's gained some hue, some tint. Which may be mold, but either way, this is probably not something clean and safe to use for something that I'm going to put inside of my body. So I'm gonna set that aside. I'm gonna grab the mill, and we're going to mill about 1.5 pounds of rice for this. All right, here's the grain mill. This is not designed to be used this way, but that's okay. Oh yeah, that's gonna make a mess. I need to find another container that I can mill into and then transfer from that container into this one. I think I might have to use this where I measure it out and weigh out the rice. Let me see. Twitch and also my editor, if you're wearing earbuds, this might be a good time to take them off because the mic is right above this drill. So it might be very, very loud, and I apologize ahead of time. We lost a little bit of the rice, but not enough to be really concerned over. It's just like literally like 2 like pinches of rice here that are stuck in the mat. So those are not going to be part of this experiment. Take your milled desiccant, your rice. You can add salt to this if you really want to make it just that much more dry, and salt will also help fight some bacteria and some mold that might find its way into your kit that you're working on. Now, this will be probably the most caveman thing that I do this entire time. I'm just going to be using a perforated super bag. A super bag is like a plastic fine mesh, like a cheesecloth bag, but it's plastic, so you can squeeze it and you don't have to worry about it ripping, tearing. You throw it in your dishwasher, you throw it in with your laundry or whatever, and then it's clean. This has been sanitized, but I have just now been sticking my hand all up inside of it. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna try and set it up so that, we'll cut to camera 2, I think you guys can see that there. Yeah, it shouldn't touch the rice at the bottom. The only reason I don't want that to happen is because I'm being very careful about what is making direct contact with the moisture. Rice has a lot of carbohydrate concentration in it, which means that if there is any bacteria or anything in here that does latch onto the rice, it will have a whole lot of food to propagate and ruin this whole thing. So just be careful, sanitize everything. Don't let your things touch the grains. And then we're gonna put all these in here. You can try and separate them one at a time. The reason I said that using this bag is kind of a caveman method to doing this is because the reason it's not ideal is because you will have instances where 2 pieces of fruit are stuck to each other like this, and that means that meat in between these 2 slices of fruit won't be exposed to the desiccant in the air. So that's just gonna make it kind of just a little bit harder to get all of that moisture content out of these pieces of fruit. For me, the only way I can combat that is by trying to throw them in here one at a time. Just try and scatter them. If you have the means, or if you have something like this at home, you can take a little, like a metal shelf or something, and if you can create tiers of shelves inside of your container, whatever you're using. You don't have to be using a jar like I am. If you're using something like a bucket, that's probably going to be easier to do this kind of setup inside of, and you can have a bigger bucket, obviously. Create those tiers, and then you're going to want to lay these slices out flat, and that's probably the most efficient way that you could set up something like that. That is also how typical dehydrators work. You have those tiers, there's perforations in the tiers, the hot air gets blasted typically from the bottom up, through everything, drying everything out. This is a little bit of a more natural method, and most of you maybe don't have a dehydrator at home, but some of you probably have rice that you're not using. So there it is. There's our bag, there's the rice. I have a lid on top just to make sure that there isn't any extra water content getting pulled in here. So this should dry itself out nicely. I'm gonna put a date on this just so that I don't forget when I started. And I mean, it's dehydrating, so it doesn't take a whole lot of time. If we were using a hot, dry air method, then this would take probably 18 to 24 hours. But since we're not doing that, this is actually probably gonna take a few days. So hopefully by the time I'm back here in the bar, and that'll be on Wednesday. So in order to make your banana rum, your banana infused rum, you're gonna need a few things. You should have a bottle of some kind. You can use a bottle, you can use a jar. I prefer using Cruise Supply bottles. This isn't sponsored, but they have a removable bottom. This obviously makes it easier to put fruit in here. I could probably take this whole banana, fits in there just like that. You could do it that way if you want to. I'm probably gonna try and parse these up into smaller parts. And I'm not sure if I want to use the peel or not. I have 3 bananas, so I'm thinking, and I have a bunch of these that are clean and sanitized. So I'm thinking of maybe doing 3 different batches, but first I need to know how much rum I have to work with, because currently I only have 1 silver rum. I have a decent amount of it. This is a handle. So this is normally 1.5 liters I don't know offhand what that is in ounces, unfortunately. Let's see how much we have just by measuring it in one of these bottles really quick. Probably gonna end up using the whole thing today, which is fine. This isn't necessarily super expensive. And banana infused rum is pretty, especially silver rum, it's pretty versatile. I anticipate if I don't love it, I think the only thing I'm gonna need to do is maybe add some spices. Or put some oak chips in there to give it some more funk, more flavor. Or spike it with a higher proof, like Jamaican or... what's the word I'm looking for? Or rum agricole. Jamaican rum or rum agricole, because both of those are made typically using pot stills, so they have a lot more funk and character and earthiness to them. They have a lot more spice. So this is how much rum we have. Cool thing about these cruise supply bottles, they have the measurements both right side up and upside down. So I don't have to put this back on here to measure it. I can tell already it's 600 milliliters. So we have actually almost about a whole regular fifth of white rum. I'm just gonna commit to using all of this. Keep my life simple. We're gonna do 3 batches. Each batch is gonna have 200 milliliters, roughly. I say roughly because I'm probably gonna make myself another rum and coke, or just add another ounce to the rum and coke that I already have, because the water has melted, so it's not as strong as it used to be. There we go. Cool. First things first, most important thing. I'm not proud of this, but when I make drinks for myself at home, I do typically err on the lighter side of making a drink. So if I was making this at work, and someone was just gonna have like 2 or 3, I'd probably do about 1.5 ounces of white rum. When I'm making these for myself, because I'm on camera and there's a decent chance that I just will drink throughout the entire live stream, just because that's how I am. Do not do as I do, but because that's the case, I try not to have so much in each single drink. First, let's separate out these 200 liters. Let's find those measurements. Cruise Supply has these bottles in 2 sizes. They have these ones that are your typical fifth. They're about 750 milliliters top to bottom. They also have a squat bottle that kind of looks like... yeah. This squat bottle just means that it's a little bit shorter, if that's your preference, or if you're doing any infusion that has like a very bulky piece of fruit or veg or something in it, you can use those. And they also have both of those bottles with and without the markings for your preference. So that's fine. Let's measure 200 milliliters as well as we can. Also, you know, be decently careful doing this, because this is top heavy right now. It's top heavy, so there's obviously the chance that it will just tip over. You could lose a lot of product doing that. Waste a lot of money. Okay, that's right on the money, I think. So we've got 200 milliliters in there. Low battery. Let's measure out another 200 milliliters here. This time I'm gonna hold the bottom of it, or the top, as it were. I wish I had a speed pour for this. Make this a lot more controlled. There we go. All right. Now, just to be sure, this one's a bit short of 200 milliliters, but the rest of them are fine. So, the 3 things that we're testing here. I think one of these will have only banana peels in it. One of these will have only the fruit, the meat from the inside of the banana in it, and one of them will have both. So I gotta figure out exactly how I'm gonna do that fairly between all of these. Start here. So this one I think we'll have both. Also, you should be checking to make sure that your banana is still serviceable when you do this. You can't make bad food good just by putting it in alcohol. As far as I'm aware, anyway. So I'm just gonna put that whole peel in there just like that. And then I think this is probably the one that I'm gonna do both, just because it'll make things a little bit easier. Oh, really quick, I can show you guys what I mean about banana being a segmented fruit really quick. So with the peel off, avert your eyes if this is gonna make you uncomfortable, because I'm gonna have to touch the tip. All right, if you're not looking away, then what happens next is your fault. If you press into the end of the banana, it should break into 3 equal parts. You see how that segment splits off right there? So that means the other segment is right here. Ta-da, 3 equal parts. That's not me cutting it with my finger or anything weird. That's how bananas are. I'll try and get everything in here. The only weakness with this method that I'm using right now is that some of the fruit and some of the skin isn't going to be submerged the entire time. All right, so this one, give it a good shake. Doesn't have to be a cocktail shake. There we go, we've actually got decent contact with everything here. And then what we'll do when this is sat for a long enough time that I'm comfortable with, I've seen people do this for a week, I've seen people do that for 24 hours, I've seen bars do that in 10 minutes and it still retains a lot of flavor. I'm not gonna be back here until Wednesday, so that's gonna end up sitting here for about 48 hours. And then we're gonna basically pour it through a super bag to strain it, and then whatever is left is what we're gonna sample. All right. Next up, we're gonna do one that is just skins. Same thing here, I'm gonna cut the ends off of these bananas. I said skins, right, I think? Just skins. If you get a little of those, like, banana strings, for lack of a better term, the really fine kinds of fibers that kind of fall off of the banana like that, I don't think it's gonna matter so much if those are in the skin batch or the fruit batch. So, do with those what you like. Same deal. We've got the skin of 2 bananas. And again, it's another one of those sustainability things. Normally, the skin of your banana, you would probably just throw it away, right? So this is another thing you can do. If you're not composting and you don't want to have so much waste, you don't want to throw so many things away, get a little bit more use out of some of the produce that otherwise you would just be wasting, and that's a waste of money, it's a waste of energy. Last but not least is the fruit of the banana itself, the fruit or the meat of the banana. Cut these up the way I do for my daughter. And then, perfect. The size of these chunks isn't going to matter so much because as these macerate over time, and maceration, by the way, is just a word that means, you know, it's gonna process, it's gonna impart flavor into whatever liquid you've put it in. As these macerate over time, the consistency of the banana will get closer to like jelly, kind of. It'll become very soft. So with this one, actually, and with the other one that has both the meat and the skin inside of it, we're probably gonna have to run it through a super bag and then squeeze that super bag to get as much of that flavor out as possible. And then, just to make sure it's not super creamy, give this a decent shake. Let's turn it the other way. I'm gonna try and, yeah, there we go, that's good. Trying to like mash them in the bottom of this. So, really quick, give camera 2 a quick view of what these 3 look like. Camera 2, all right. So here you have the first one that we made. This one has a whole banana in it, skin and meat and all. This one has just the skin of 2 bananas, and this one has just the meat of 2 bananas. We use the same bottle of rum for all 3. They all have roughly 200 milliliters of white rum in there. So we're gonna see how much flavor and what kinds of flavor the different pieces of the banana impart onto these different rums. Which ones are good and which ones are hopefully just not so good. And yeah, that's it. We'll have an update for this on Wednesday, and I'll have an update for the dehydrated garnishes on Wednesday as well.
Several days later.
So here we are, a few days later. These have been sitting and macerating. And just in case they've moved around since the first recording, this is the batch of the white rum that has the skins and the banana meat in it. This one has skins and white rum. This one has meat and white rum. So, just in case those have moved. Another piece of information, the dehydrator that we had wasn't stored properly, so we actually lost basically all of the wheels that we had prepped. If you want to avoid that at home, basically don't keep it in a dark, damp area. And also the seal that we had on top was cracked open, we realized. So we're not going to be able to use those. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to taste these one by one for you guys, and then I'm going to make probably an old-fashioned style cocktail with one of these. And I'll give you some ideas for how you could use these different ones. Maybe if you really want what I think is probably going to be the sweeter version of all of these, you may want to make something like a daiquiri. If you're using just the skins because you like that tannin or that sort of bitterness to that, the spice, then you're probably going to want to make something like an old-fashioned. First, I have to strain these through a super bag. I'm going to squeeze the bag to try and get as much of the juice out as I can, as much of the alcohol out, and that'll also kind of clarify it a little bit, make it easier to work into a cocktail. So we have to do that first for each one of these. I'm going to start with the skins only because I think that's probably going to be easier to filter. Ooh, that's remarkably pleasant. It's almost like a banana cream, though. Oh, there's like an acetyl, like an acid sort of scent to it, which is fine. All right, get a clean and sanitized super bag if you have one. Coffee filter will also work. We're gonna do it that way. And then, luckily, because these are from Crew Supply, the bottom does come out. Oh, there it is. It's a wet bottle though. There we go. It's a lot of condensation on the outside of it. So now we're gonna try and actually get everything out of here. All right. Trying to pull this out without making more of a mess than I already have. Cool, cool. So we did get some solids in there. I'm gonna end up losing some of this in here. Normally I would do this over the sink, but I don't have a camera over there, so we're doing it. That was actually not so bad. We don't have a camera over there, so I'm doing it here so that everyone can see what exactly I'm doing. I think for the other batches, I'm probably gonna do this into a pitcher and then maybe strain that pitcher back into one of these bottles. You could wear gloves while you're doing this, especially if you're doing this at work. And you would really only be kind of wringing this out if you are using a super bag. If you're using a coffee filter, obviously that's gonna rip. And I am just making these at home, mostly for myself. So if my hands touch them, no harm, no foul. But always protect your guests. All right, let's put this back on here. Turn it over. But yeah, you can see it's pretty well clarified. There's not really any big solids that have made their way. Actually, I can't see any solids. But this is really hard to see on camera. There's actually kind of like a slick of oil at the top, which makes sense. It's not something I was expecting, but it makes sense from the banana peels. I'm gonna see if the scent has changed at all. Yeah, that acetyl smell, that acid smell that was there before is completely gone. So, set that one aside. I'm gonna taste them once I have them all filtered and figured out. So let's do skins and meat. And then we're gonna do the meat last. Probably mostly because it's gonna be the messiest one to do. And if you're wondering how exactly I clean my super bag, if you're wondering how to do this at home, you can take just a little bit of dish soap, spray it in there, and then you crumple up the super bag like you're throwing it away, and then you just kind of rub it back and forth, and then the friction will activate the detergent, and that's basically how you clean it. And then you rinse it out through water until the water runs clear. And this time, now that we have the pitcher, I'm actually gonna start this one upside down. God willing. That actually smells really good. Cool, cool. So, quick note, you don't have to do this with bananas. You can do the same kind of thing with any produce that you have that's going bad at home. You could do the same thing. You could do these kinds of infusions with maybe some mint that you have that's wilting, which is pretty likely if you're growing your own mint because it grows like a weed. But you can do it with herbs, spices, your produce. If you're really intrepid, you can do these kinds of infusions, maybe with some kinds of fats and things that you have laying around that you otherwise wouldn't use. If you're the kind of person who cuts the fat off of your steak before you cook it, you can kind of render that down and do a fat wash using this basic same method, and at least then that's something you're not throwing away. I anticipate this being pretty cloudy because I have a feeling that the meat from the banana is probably going to end up squeezing through these tiny, tiny pores in the super bag. Okay, I think that's sufficiently squeezed. We're gonna wash this back into the same container it came from. Kinda wanna shake this up. Yeah. See, not nearly as clear as the batch that had the skins, and there's less of that oily slick over the top. Still there, because there's some skin in this one. Yeah. Alright, we got one more. Alright, and we're back. Alright, so once you've cleaned your super bag again, or whatever you're using to filter, or grab a new filter if you have something disposable, but again, this whole point is to kind of reduce waste, so try not to do that if you can help it. Now the final one, this one, the one that should be the most balanced, this one has the skin and the meat of just one banana that was about to go bad. Or thrown out, at least. I don't know if... They're different. They're all different. Like, well, they're all pretty significantly different, actually. I don't know which one is my favorite yet. Probably, hopefully, have a better idea once I taste them. Actually, set that on its side. Alright. You're wondering if you have a super bag at home or you want to get one and you're wondering kind of what method I'm using, you can either just claw it and just squeeze it like that, which is what I was doing with the last one, but this method is actually working pretty well, basically where you ring up the tail of it, and then as you twist, you push with the fist that you have holding the knot down here. That seems to be a little bit more efficient. I think that's probably the best that we're going to get out of that. My hands are going to smell amazing after this, so that's nice. Alright. Now I'm going to have to be very careful. Make sure that I remember which ones are which. Moment of truth. Now we're going to taste test these. Set them here, side by side. So again, from left to right, here you have the one that had only the skins in it. This one had skin and meat, and this one had just the banana meat in it, the juiciest part of the banana. So, and here we've actually eliminated about 5 pounds of what would have just been waste, would have just been thrown away, and now we have this cool homemade thing that we can share with people. So, let's try and see if I can illustrate visually how these are different from each other. Yeah, so I put them upside down. It's kind of easier to see how different each of these are. So visually, I think the deepness, the darkness of the color is coming from the skins, because even the most clear, the one that only had the skins in it, still has this like kind of like amber, burnt orange kind of look to it. And this one, the one of these two that had skins and meat, has the cloudiness of this one that had the meat, but it has the dark color of this one that had the skins. So that's just an interesting note. Let's see how these taste. This is for science, and technically all of these are still like 80 proof rum with a little bit of added fruit. So I'm not going to be taking entire shots because I do want to taste all 3 of these. It might be a little bit too much. Actually looks really pleasant also. All right, so here's all 3 of them, the same order that we've been doing the entire time. So from my left to right, skins only, skins and meat, meat only. So, skins only. Bottoms up. Okay, yeah. There's like an acid kind of back note. That's very astringent. That's kind of like what I would expect an Amaro of this to taste like. It has a lot of bitterness coming from the pith of the skin of the banana. Overall, it's fine. This is probably something though that I would sweeten that and turn it into a house-made Amaro, which I might do because there's not a whole lot of volume in there. Probably just gonna add a little bit of agave syrup to that. All right, up next, we have the whole banana, skins and meat and everything. Cheers. Yeah, it's much more pleasant. I like the creaminess from the meat of the banana. It has kind of like this cutting acidity that's coming from the skins that I actually kind of really like. And it, I think, backs up my assumption that making this a little bit creamier or sweeter would make it even better. Overall, still fine. This is probably one that I would use in an old-fashioned. Or an old-fashioned style drink. Obviously, I'm not using whiskey here. And last, but certainly not least, we have just the meat. Cheers, guys. Oh yeah, we have a winner. Yeah, it's that one. This one's very good. It's very good, but it's creamy. It has like actually a perfect level of sweetness, which is really nice. This is about like 1 banana per 100 milliliters of white rum. So if you were to try and do an entire bottle, which I wouldn't recommend doing, but if you were gonna try and do an entire bottle like this, you would need 7.5 bananas to fit in there with them. But this is probably the friendliest one. This is the one that I could keep it like this and I could serve it to guests. It would be intriguing, it would be pleasant. The difference though, the one that had the whole banana in it, meat and skin, I said would probably go in like a stirred bitter drink, like, or not, well, I said this would go in a stirred drink like an old-fashioned, something that's more liquor forward. This, though, because of the creaminess and the sweetness in this, I think this would be shaken up in a daiquiri. It would make a phenomenal daiquiri, but that's what I would do here. Some other options that you guys have if you're doing stuff like this at home is you could also barrel age these. The 2 that have the skins from the banana in there, if you were to barrel age them, it would soften some of the character, some of that acidity, that pungent bitterness that comes from those skins. It would help soften that up. I wouldn't recommend doing it with the one that has the meat because it's thick, it's creamy, and that will funk up the inside of your barrel. So, what am I gonna make? I'm gonna make a version of an old-fashioned. I'm gonna use the whole banana batch. And now that I've looked at these so often, now I can actually visually tell the difference. So I'm gonna use the whole banana batch. I'm gonna use agave syrup. And then I'll decide on some bitters later. Normally you would use Angostura aromatic bitters, but you're not normally working with something that is so sweet already, so I may be able to get a little bit weirder and use something that's a little bit more pungent here. All right. Find your stirring glass. Not that one. Get your ice there on the side. I'm gonna start with 1.5 ounces, which is normally where I start when I'm doing R&D for a cocktail. So we're gonna start with 1.5 ounces of this base liquor. And the reason I do 1.5 ounces when I'm doing research and development for cocktails is because that way I'll know if it needs a little bit more oomph, a little bit more of that heat from the alcohol, I can go up to about 2 ounces. Sometimes you can go over that if you're being very careful. And if there's too much heat from the alcohol, I can cut down to maybe 1.25 or 1 ounce and it'll still feel like a cocktail. So I'm gonna start with just a 1/4 ounce of this agave syrup. If anything, it may end up being too sweet, and if that's the case, and I was going to recreate this, I would say doing just a dash of the agave would make a huge difference. Another thing that you can do if it comes out too sweet is add more bitters or add more heat by adding more of your base liquor. So we've got that. Now for the thing that's gonna set this off, we need to get the right bitters. I haven't made up my mind yet, and luckily I'm spoiled for choice. I grabbed some citrus themed bitters. I grabbed Old Reliable, Angostura, which is probably gonna end up in this at some point anyway. And then some more funky stuff. I grabbed Peychaud's bitters, which some of you may be familiar with. This is what you would normally use in something like Sazerac. And then I grabbed celery bitters because I think this might help lift the drink if it feels too creamy and too sweet. So I could do 1 dash of each of these, but I'm gonna go through and smell them, kind of judge for myself. Okay, I like that one. What I'm looking for are scents like spices. I want something that's like cardamom, nutmeg, allspice, star anise, those kinds of things, or anisette, depending on where you are. This one is too sweet. This one just smells like absinthe to me sometimes. Hold on. Fun fact, I've not seen another bartender do this. Normally when a bartender is tasting bitters or something like that, they'll either dip it onto the back of their hand or onto a spoon, taste it from the spoon, or from the spoon to the hand, or whatever. But if you're just smelling it, the alcohol content is so high that you can kind of treat it like perfume, and you can let it sit there for a minute, let it aerate, and then you get a much better sense of all of the flavors that are in there. I actually really like that. That's providing a significant amount of lift. Now, I really want to use the celery bitters. This may be a step too far, so. All right, so we are left with orange, Angostura, and Peychaud's bitters. So let me, you know, the big 3. I don't have Reagan's orange bitters, unfortunately, but that's what you would want, ideally. I think that'll work. I think the orange bitters will provide just the right amount of acidity. If you're wondering what the other bitters were that I had here that I pulled away immediately, those were grapefruit bitters. Just on the nose, it smelled too much like candy, so I took that away because this is already going to be relatively sweet. So I say we just do 1 dash of each of these. If anything, it's probably going to need a little bit more of something here. Try and get that all around. It's not going to be perfect the first time, nothing is, so I'm anticipating having to do some kind of modification. Stir it. If you're wondering how long to stir, sometimes someone will tell you, you know, stir for 12 seconds, 15 seconds, or whatever. It really depends on your method, the quality of your ice, what kind of stirring vessel you're using. But really the point is that you're trying to get dilution and chill. So what I look for is a certain temperature around the glass with my hand, which is why I hold it with one and stir with the other. You don't want to let it sit inactive over ice like that for too long. So quickly grab your strainer, grab a nice fancy glass. And because I'm not particular and this drink is for me, I'm just going to take some ice here out of the stirring glass. All right. Cheers. Let's see how it tastes. It's so good. It's it is sweet, but it's like it's sweet the way that fruit is sweet, or sweet the way that like a confectioner or dessert might be sweet. It's not sweet the way that candy is sweet, which is really nice. This is kind of like if you could have like an ice cream sundae as an old fashioned, that's what this is like. It's remarkably, it's actually not that sweet. If I would change one thing or add one thing that I happen to not have here with me, I might use cocoa bitters on this. I might use like Scrappy's chocolate bitters or something, which I happen to not have any. Well, I am gonna finish this. Thank you guys for tuning in, sticking around, showing up. Remember, if you learned anything during this video, please like, subscribe, and comment what kinds of infusions and drinks you would make with these at home. And hopefully I see you guys in the next video. Take care.